From my perspective, I went directly from feeling that the room was spinning on me in the bathroom to all of a sudden sitting above this scene and looking down. I felt like I was sitting in a comfortable chair, just looking down at everything going on. I witnessed my buddy get driven away in an ambulance, and I was worried about him. At the same rate, I felt like it was almost entertainment. I didn't feel like I was connected to the scene below me. And I watched as they bagged up this body. I didn't think it was me. I thought me was up here. I watched them take that body to go turn it into the medical examiner.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and today I would like to welcome to the show, Vinney Tolman. Hi, Vinney.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here. I'm so excited for everyone to hear your story. Will you share a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll talk about what happened?
Yeah, I'm Vinney Tolman. I live in Las Vegas. I've lived here for 20 some odd years, at least in Nevada. And long time ago, used to work in TV and film. Also used to work in construction and did a bit of bodybuilding. And that's kind of where my story starts, is back then, and which was coming up on 22 years ago in January. So coming right up on 22 years ago, my experience happened.
Wow. So take us back to what happened and why we're talking today.
Well, the primary reason why we're talking is I passed away. I was in a body bag, and the gist of it was I was taking a supplement that was about to be made illegal, actually, and for the very reason that what happened to me. This supplement, when taken in the wrong dosage, it can actually kill you. It can put you to sleep. And I didn't know that we had such a strong dosage. Me and my best friend, we both took a single dose. What we thought was a single dose. Turns out it was a 20 times dose, the way that it was formulated.
Wow.
And, we should have had an eyedropper full, but we had a bottle cap full. And what we didn't realize is the American stuff was highly diluted with water, about 95% water, 5% of this supplement, whereas all the international brands were 100% solution. So yeah, we had about 20 times too much in that single little bottle cap. And that's where it all begins. It starts with this supplement. We both took it. We instantly felt something was off, something was wrong. And, in witnessing other people that used this supplement, if they ate some food, they'd feel better. So we thought, hey, let's go eat some food. We'll feel better. And we went down to a local Dairy Queen, and I made it in to the single-use bathroom and locked the door. My buddy went in and collapsed on the booth and began to vomit. And right away, the manager came over and called emergency services, got him hauled away in an ambulance. They took him away. He was fine. They pumped his stomach, kept him overnight in a hospital, but he was able to get out the very next morning. Whereas for me, I was in that bathroom. I had collapsed, passed out, and started to vomit while lying on my back. And so I aspirated. And I was found about an hour later by the same manager. When he unlocked that bathroom, he found me. He called emergency services again. This time, it was very different because the body was essentially dead and starting to turn cold. So very different from when you're finding someone still alive anyway. Yeah, so the medics came, and it was a 3-man team. There was two veteran medics and a rookie medic. This rookie, He really felt they should have been able to do more for this dead guy. And for me, from my perspective, I went directly from feeling that the room was spinning on me in the bathroom to all of a sudden sitting above this scene and looking down. I felt like I was sitting in a comfortable chair, just looking down at everything going on. I witnessed my buddy get driven away in an ambulance, and I was worried about him. At the same right, I felt like it was almost entertainment. I didn't feel like I was connected to the scene below me. And I watched as they bagged up this body. I didn't think it was me. I thought me was up here. And I watched them take that body to go turn it into the medical examiner. And the rookie medic in the back of the ambulance, he was staring at the body as they drove down the street. He felt something prompt him that this one wasn't all the way dead. So he broke protocol, unzipped that body bag, and started resuscitation. There's of course a bit more to all that, but we'd need a couple of hours just to go over all that. But
Yeah.
he did go in and hook me up to a defib machine and get the body to start, got the heart to start again. And he did that only a few feet away from a hospital. So they were able to take the body directly to a hospital as soon as the heart started. And that's part of the miracle.
And all this time you were just observing, thinking this is
Yeah,
just a
just
scene
observing
that
it.
you're observing and you're not feeling the connection to the scene.
I felt one connection when the rookie medic was feeling around for a pulse. He went down to the femoral artery, which is down on the leg, the inside leg. And when he was feeling around there, I did feel a spark, like a shock. And that was the first instance that I had that maybe what I was watching was not some kind of entertainment. It was actually something that was happening.
Wow.
And but it didn't land, because my brain or my consciousness was thinking, well, I can't be that down there. I'm up here. That me is up here. And when we live inside our bodies, we think we are this body, but we're not. We're actually something more than that. And I was in the state of being more than that when I was not in my body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Later,
Yeah.
when they were transferring the body into the hospital and strapping it down, that's when I realized that it was my body that I had been watching this whole time. And I had a bit of a rough time with that. I had thoughts like, how could you be so dumb? How could you be so ignorant to not know that this is what was your own body? And then I started to see anything bad that I ever did, truly anything, from the youngest age up until that current age, which I was 25 when this happened,
Mm-hmm.
and watched it all happen. Then shortly after that, I started to feel this warmth come over me. And that warmth invited in a review of my life, of all the good things that I did. And I did get to see a lot of good things that I did, even when I didn't know I was doing good. And from that, I noticed that this love energy was coming directly from behind me. So I turned around to see where it was coming. And I saw this man all dressed in white and in a pristine white suit, and almost a kind of an ascot over his shoulders that was white. He had a long white beard, long white hair. His skin was very pink and glistening, kind of like sand in the sun. And as soon as I saw him, I thought, in my mind, oh, this must be God.
Mm-hmm.
And, he responded without using words. He just instantly communicated to me, no, son, I'm not God. And, I had a few more thoughts, but he ended up introducing himself as my guide, and he was going to help me go wherever I wanted to go. And he motioned back to my body. He said, hey, I can take you back to your body, or I can take you anywhere in the universe. And that's when my consciousness went off a little bit. I wanted to not go back to my body. It looked horrible. It looked like so much pain. It looked like hell, truly. But what I started to think was, oh, wow, anywhere in the universe. And then I kept resonating or thinking about this love energy that was coming from him. And so I asked him, I said, hey, how about this love energy coming from you? Can I go where that's coming from? And he got very excited. He said, oh yeah, that's your home. That he says, that's my home. That's both of our home. I can take us both to our home. And so we began a journey, and kind of the existential journey of consciousness through the cosmos, essentially, as
Wow.
we started this journey. And that's kind of where it all begins.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And, the way that your life review was is where you had these negative thoughts, and then you had these negative memories. And
Hmm.
then you started to review the positive that you had done. I'm curious if any of that negativity that you experienced at the beginning caused you to hold back a little bit during this exchange with your guide.
100% it did. It wasn't until I started feeling the warming, like the warmth of the good things that I did. I could actually feel love being poured upon me the whole time, even while I was in that negative state. But that negative state, I was blocking that love. I was
Mm,
not allowing it to connect to me. I was allowing my fear to block it, kind of like an umbrella. Um, but as soon as I started to feel that love, permeate that blockage that I was putting up, that barrier, then it allowed more and more and more of it, and I was able to put away that blockade, that barrier. Yeah,
that's interesting. It feels like that's a microcosm of our life here, is when we put up that negativity and that feeling bad about ourselves or feeling bad about others. We do the same thing. We kind of block the love that's available to us, the light that's available to us.
absolutely. I've learned in this life that sometimes we don't need enemies because we have ourselves.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So take us from there. Where did you go with your
So from
guide?
that, my guide, he introduced himself to me. He said his name was Drake. He said that he was there to just guide me, to take me wherever I wanted to go. And so we started this journey towards home, towards where I came from. And I thought for sure that he was going to, break right out and start teaching me about love. And I looked at him and I said, I know, this is going to be all about love. Love's the most important thing. And he goes, actually, love is very important, but authenticity is very, very, very important. That we have to figure out who we really are before we can be loved, before we can love anyone else. So the first thing he taught me was authenticity. He taught me that we have to figure out who we really are, that there's different versions of ourselves that we allow to exist. The version that we take to mom and dad's house on Thanksgiving, or the version that we take out to the party or the club or the bar, or the version that we take to college or school, and even the version we take to go hang out with siblings. And he helped me see that there was one unified being underneath all of these faces, underneath all of these facets. There was an authentic self there. And he helped me see that. He helped me uh, essentially deliver my authentic self to the world.
Mm.
And then I thought, well, now it's about love. And he said, nope, not yet. He said that I needed to learn why I was here, why I was on earth. And I said, well, I know why I'm on earth. It's so that I could be chosen to pass or fail, saved or damned. And he said, kind of, but not close.
Mm.
He said that it's our, life on earth is just a school, and that we're all anticipating our life here. because it takes a lot of energy to get us here and in these lives. So we want to get here, but by the time we get here, we don't remember why we're here. And why we are here is just to learn that life here is a classroom. It's never been a courtroom. And that was a big one for me. I felt that life for sure was a courtroom, and I was giving up on myself sometimes because of my mistakes.
Mm,
And he helped me see that there was not a time to ever give up on yourself. Never,
mm,
no matter how many mistakes.
yeah.
Then he said it was about love. Then love came in, and he helped me understand that loving all beings on this earth is a very primary and important part of existence here. That if we can't learn how to foster love for each other, especially for everyone, then we'll have a hard time receiving love, because love itself is a two-way road, and what we don't allow out of us, we won't allow in us, essentially.
Mm,
Yeah. But
wow.
then he moved on to teach me a whole lot more principles. He was teaching me about prejudice and teaching me about how to love everyone, why we're a more depth of why we're even here on Earth, and the importance of technology and controlling our thoughts. And he really worked me through quite a few principles. And by the time we'd gotten through the last one, we were in the heaven space. We were approaching it, and in that space, I was allowed to touch down what I felt was my feet. And what's an interesting point with all this, I did have a body. It was an energetic body, but over there, energy is physical. In the eternities, your energetic body is a physical body. And so I was looking down and seeing toes and hands and arms and legs. I was seeing my body. I touched down on this pristine grass, and I could see iridescent rainbows, like like fluidly coming off of the grass. I could even feel music coming off the grass, and when I touched it with my energetic toes, or my toes, I could taste a sweetness coming off of it too. I could also feel that there was supreme consciousness, or what I would call God, in that grass, in every blade, and that every blade was an individual consciousness, as well as the grouping together was like an allocated or associated consciousness too. But I could feel that there was so much love in every single blade of grass, that it's more love than we even see on the entire planet.
Wow.
And that's just the very beginning of getting to this heavenly realm, is we plug into this space. And Drake, he was kind of lovingly laughing. He says, if you love the grass, you should see the flowers. And I freaked out. I was like, oh man, there's flowers. No way. I was so excited. And he showed me flowers. He let me get up close and personal with them and see how in each petal it has liquid color flowing through it, as well as the most sweet aroma coming off of it. But even the grass had that aroma. It just had such a beautiful, distinct aroma and taste and flavor coming off of it. And then he showed me the trees. And as I was in awe of these trees, I felt water touch me on my toes. And I looked down and I could feel that consciousness in water had approached me out of a little stream. And it had approached me and asked if I wanted it on me. And I said, yes. And this water came and washed up over me. It felt beautifully electric and warm and cool at the same time. But yet I didn't get actually wet. I felt that I stayed dry even while the water was on me. And after it completely encapsulated my energetic body, I could feel that the water was going in my soul and stitching all the little damage that had happened to my soul.
Wow.
I growing up abused, there was quite a bit of damage there. And that water was just patching it up as it went all the way until it had completed its cycle. It had gone up and completely encapsulated me or encircled me. And then it slowly went down and went off of me. But I wasn't wet after that, which was interesting, different from Earth. The water didn't stay remnant on me the way it does here. And I was completely dry, but I was different. I was a very different being after that.
Hmm.
And it's almost like the water was activating me so I could see the building. I wasn't, I was seeing the outline of a building, but I didn't know it was a building yet. But after the water came off of me, I knew that there was a building there too. And I was starting to witness people going in and out of this building, just very, very excited about what was going on inside. I knew it was a place of learning, kind of like a university or something like that. People could go and learn true history, true facts about the past and about the future too. You could learn about anything you want in this school. And that's when Drake, he came around to my side and he put his arm around me, and then he hugged me and brought me in really close. And then he looked me in the eyes and he said, Vinney, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he gave me this hug, a hug that had so much energy in it. It felt like it could create galaxies with it.
Hmm.
When he put his arms around me, I felt more love than I knew existed in all the universe. And I felt this pulsar of energy come off of us. And, people have asked in the past, was that God? And 100% that love I was feeling in that moment from Drake was God, that it was God's love for me and God's love for all of us, that it permeates existence there. It's within everything there. You can't leave that space and not know that God loves us.
Hmm.
And there's nothing that can change my mind on that. Nothing ever will change my mind on that. That love is so powerful and so strong. It's impacted my soul for 22 years now
Wow.
and for forever till I get back there.
Yeah.
But with that, I woke up. I had been in a coma for 3 days. I had been brain dead. The nurses, the orderlies, the doctors, they all called me the miracle boy. I didn't feel like a miracle. I felt cursed. I felt like I just wanted to go home. And, I ended up going home about 6 hours, 6.5 hours after I woke up. And I ended up going home only to feel that I still wanted to go home. So
Yeah.
even as I sat in my house, in my childhood home, I wanted to go home. I had an
Yeah.
apartment back then too, and I went to the apartment that very day, and I felt I still wanted to go home. So I knew something was off. I didn't quite remember my experience yet. The night after all of this happened, so about one and a half days later, but a full 24 hours after I was home, I went to a restaurant with my sister and her family and a couple other family members, and she kind of cornered me and said, "Hey, you were dead. Did you see anything? Did you hear anything?" And my brain wanted to say no, but what came out of my mouth was my experience.
Hmm.
And at first I thought, oh, here it is. This is what the neurologist was telling me about. This is what the doctors were telling me about, that my brain would try to make up things to fill in the empty space wherein I was brain dead. The problem was I was so emotional about this. I'd never been this emotional about anything. I could barely get any words out. I just started weeping, start crying.
Wow.
And for the next few weeks, I every time I tried to talk about it with anyone, I would just start crying. Even if I thought about it, I would just start crying, weeping. And so I opted to not tell anyone for a little while. And it was about 3 months later, I ended up meeting Andrea, who's my wife now. And she was the first one that I really sat down and explained everything that happened to me. Even before we dated, I told her everything.
Wow.
I figured if if she thought I was crazy from having this experience, she needed to know up front. And she fully embraced it. She fully accepted it. She didn't have to believe it, but she embraced that I believed it did happen. And over months and months of, discussions and many deep conversations about my experience, she felt she had a knowledge of it that was as good as mine, pretty much, from having the experience, even to the point where, a few months later, about 2 weeks before I got married, I was in Wyoming at a family reunion with her and watching this little presentation on the town of Wyoming, of Afton, Wyoming. And we saw this slide come up and add a picture of this guy named Charles. And when I saw it, as soon as Andrea saw it, she said, "That's your guide. That's him." And when I saw it, I said, "Yeah, that's him, but his name's not Charles, it's Drake." Why is that? I recognized the last name and went directly to my grandmother, who she had that last name growing up. And I said, "Grandmother, who is this Charles Kazare? Tell me about him." And her exact response was, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of famous in the family." And so I had my first really strong confirmation that what I had witnessed, what I had experienced was a very real thing and not just some figment of my imagination. I now had a name that matched my guide. And even the name he gave me, he could have given me Charles, and I would have found paperwork on him. I would have found all sorts of historical records with him. But under his middle name, I would have found nothing unless I go to his personal family records where they record the middle name. There, I see that he went by Drake to his family, close family, even extended family, they called him Charles.
Mhm.
But close,
Wow.
close family, they called him Drake. And so he was essentially circling me into that close family by having me call him Drake. And that was just one really strong confirmation of my experience. And I've had thousands of more, just literally thousands more in working with people in the work that I do, and also um, being in tune with my intuition and following it when I get nudges, get guidance, and I'm able to know that that experience was something very real for me. And I felt for the longest time that it happened to me so that I could be a PR for heaven,
Mm.
that humanity could be reminded that there's this great place, a space between spaces that we all came from and that we all go back to. And it's important for us to remember or to know the importance of that love, that source love, that creator love, that God love for all of us. And it's vitally important for us to know that. And to me, that's the primary reason why I had my experience, was so that I could share that love with the world. And some people react odd when they feel that love. They like run away from it. Other people recognize it for what it is. It's God's unconditional love for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I'm curious because I've read your book, you know, a couple of times, and I've recommended it to everybody that will listen to me, because you go through the 10 principles that you alluded to
Hmm.
when you were sharing your experience. You go through those experiences, and I have a couple of questions about that. One of the things I noticed in your book was that as you were working with your guide Drake, that as he would present a principle to you, as you were open to receive that principle, not necessarily like apply it necessarily, but just receive
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
then you were given more. And I thought that
Yes.
was a really interesting thing to observe, was that it wasn't even the application necessarily, it was the acceptance of the principle that allowed you to move forward. Is that a principle that we can also apply here?
Absolutely. We forget that in this life that we give ourselves kind of a tunnel vision, a micro vision, where we only see what's on our plate, what's in our little world, and we forget about the macro vision. We forget about the rest of everything else. And the way Drake worked with me, he didn't want me to just swallow hook, line, and sinker every principle that he was trying to teach me. He just wanted me to embrace that it was possibly truth,
Mm,
every principle. And since then I've learned that definitely all of those 10 principles are truth for me. They are. It's not going to be everybody's truth, but it is my truth for sure. And I've I've had so many people over the years that when they read the book or they hear me talk about my experience, they come to me and they go, "Hey, when I heard that, it's like I already knew it. It's
yeah.
like I already knew that deep within me, but yet nobody had taught me that in this life." So to me, that's another testament for people that if it really resonates with you, you don't have to fully accept it. And I don't ever push my story onto anybody to accept it. It's just my story. I share it for what it is. To me, it's a testimony of God's love for us, truly.
Right.
And I nowhere anywhere did I have someone say to me, "Oh, are you good enough? Did you do this? Did you check that box in life? Did you check that box?" Nowhere. What I did feel was any hindrance that I had to getting into the heavenly realm, it was just me. I was the
Mm.
only hindrance. So where I slowed down and I felt like I was losing progress, it was me. It wasn't anything outside me. It was just me.
And your personal resistance, is that what you to what you're being taught? Is that what
Personal programming, personal resistance, avoiding feeling that I'm anything special.
mm,
I grew
that's a
up
hard
thinking,
one.
yeah, I grew up thinking like I don't want to be in the spotlight. I did choose to excel in a lot of things, including athletics, but not in the best of ways. Like I used to play rugby, and I used to have a Polynesian nickname, and it was a nickname that was given to the hardest hitters.
Mm,
Guys that hit really hard in rugby, and it was like I wasn't the best of guy when this happened, and I'm still very human, but I'll tell you, my priorities are very different. I'm a much better father than what I learned fathering was. And I love what my experience taught me. I love what it's given me. I love that I found passion for life and for my family, and that I don't try to find my happiness in video games or I can't even tell you the last time I ever touched a controller. Like it's been years and years and years. Um, Other than maybe trying to set up a little game for my daughter or for my son.
yeah.
But it's like the modern day man and woman, they're putting so much of their attention into their technology. They're forgetting their divine heritage.
Mm,
And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned is that we come from divine heritage. We are a piece of God on earth, and we don't need to forget that. We need to remember it and treat it with the respect that it deserves.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the reasons that this podcast was born, was because so many people have had so many remarkable experiences. And I think in the sharing of those experiences, we all learn from each other. Everybody's experience is going to be a little unique and yet also have that thread of commonality in it. And it allows all of us to kind of awaken within ourselves the truth of God and source, and that love and that possibility within us. I'm also, having read your book, I know that it was super challenging coming back, and that
Mm-hmm.
that distinction between that heavenly realm and this and being here was really, really hard. Do you feel like that's one of the reasons we come here with no memory? What would be the purpose of coming here with no memory?
Well, number one, when we're in the heavenly realm, we're so surrounded by love that if we were to remember that love, we would ache to get back there.
Mm,
We would do whatever we needed to do to get back there, and we would lose our opportunity here. And thus the important reason for having a veil of forgetfulness for us, so that we are not allowed to remember, where we came from. Otherwise, we would stare in that rearview mirror and think, why did we leave? Why did
right.
we leave? It was our agency, though. It wasn't, we weren't forced into living here on earth. And in fact, it's quite hard to get into Earth school. It's one of the hardest in the universe. There's a lot easier schools we could have gotten into, we may have gotten into. But for us to get here, it's extremely hard, because the duality here is vast and drastic. There is great good here. There is great bad here.
Mm,
And in most other schools, the duality is much tighter and closer. But here they're vastly opposite of each other.
yeah. When and you've alluded to the fact that you have this closer connection with your guides and your intuition and so forth. And as I've worked with people, I've noticed a lot of people have a lot of fear around connecting with the spirit realm, with connecting with their guides, with connecting with angels or even ancestors. There's a little bit of fear there that they might tap into something that's not, not correct or not right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a valid fear, or is there, I feel like in some
Well,
ways that
here's
holds people back, and so I'm
it
wondering
does.
what your thoughts are about that.
People have a hard time with that, but I tell them this: go grab a Bible, and you can find reasons to bring harm to your neighbor, or you can find reasons to serve your neighbor. The
Mm,
difference is you. We need to own ourselves a lot better, because nobody's going to sneak into your world and convince you to do bad. You're going to do it because you're allowing them to use negative energy to pull wool over your eyes. Nobody can pull you wool over your eyes if you're centered on love. They can't. It's impossible.
mm,
Now they may mislead you using love as a guise, but eventually, as long as you're honest with yourself and you're truly keeping yourself anchored and centered in love, they can't get you to get off of that island of love. They can't.
mm, mm,
Only we can give away our hope. Only we can give away our agency. Um, I've worked with, countless people over the years, hundreds of people over the years, maybe even thousands now. And it's funny to me how so many people think that the outcome is some type of outside force that they have no control over. And we own our hope. We own our thoughts. And if we allow our mind to go to a bad space, no matter what we're influencing it with, then we are choosing to allocate our spirit, our soul, away from divinity, because divinity is love.
I love
When
that.
you go to that space where I went, there is no question that that the force of the universe that is greater than any other force is love. And that is our creator. Our creator is that love.
Yeah. And I feel like the word love itself has been misused in so many ways. And if we could just
Mm-hmm.
get back to the origins of that, which is God's love, right? That, if we could get back to the origins of that and look at ourselves with love, and which allows us to have even more love for the people in our space. Some of the commonalities, because I've read and studied near death experiences for many years. And when I learned about your book, I ordered it immediately, read it in less than, by the next day I had read it and underlined it and notated it. And I was just amazed by your experience, because it's one of the most comprehensive, I would say, as far as, because you were there for a long period of time. It wasn't just that you kind of tiptoed in and tiptoed out. You were physically, medically dead for at least 45 minutes to an hour, but we can see with you being in a locked bathroom for an hour and then finding you dead and then being brain dead for 3 days, that there was a lot of time there. And of course, time and space is totally different on the other side. But one of the things I've noticed is that it changes the person, and you've alluded to that change in yourself. And I've also noticed that people who have this engagement with heaven and then come back and remember it, that they find it really challenging to be here because of that difference. And I've noticed myself recently, there was some, I'll just say, like, videos or entertainment that I was watching, and I noticed that this overall is not positive for me. This is not helping me. This is actually kind of bringing me down instead of forward. And so I stopped watching those things. And so as we kind of evaluate what we're doing, we have an opportunity to connect more to our our guides and all. Do you have any thoughts on how we, as I think there's so much distraction today. There's When I was growing up, there were like 3, maybe 4 channels you could watch, and you had to watch them when they came on. Otherwise, you missed the show.
Mm-hmm.
There was not even, it wasn't until I was a teenager that we had the possibility of even recording a show. And now we have just multiple streams, like literally streams, and all of this is going through our atmosphere all the time. All this entertainment, all this distraction, the internet, AI. What is a person to do? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on all that.
The way I look at it is we all, every single one of us, have a personal connection with the creator, but the world is trying to razzle and dazzle us to turn away from that personal connection. And part of my experience, even though it happened in 2003, Drake was showing me that in the future, people would use technology like God, that they would find all their answers with technology and not with God. It's one of those things that we're going to lose if we don't make it a priority. Yeah, there's a tribe in the Amazon that when modern explorers went to go with them, this tribe said, "Oh, that green berry right there, it gets rid of kidney stones." And this is like a medieval tribe. They've never done surgery or seen inside the body necessarily, and understood what was what. And they asked the chieftain, "How do you know these get rid of kidney stones?" And he said, "Well, because the tree told me."
Mm,
And come to find out, the scientist, he went and studied these little green bean type berries that are attached to the tree. He studied them extensively, and sure enough, when you ingest them, they break up your kidney stones and they make them pass. Um, it's that divinity that we're all turning away from right now. When we're so distracted, one of the greatest lies that we've been told is that we are consumers.
Mm.
We are producers, we are creators, we are artists. We don't have to consume so much. And when every free moment is spent consuming, that consuming ends up consuming our lives. And we are not built to be consumers. When you look at The Matrix as a movie, even the whole idea, the whole premise that someone could be plugged into a network to be fed upon while that person being plugged in is feeding upon it. That's essentially our modern life.
Mm.
Many people are plugging in and they're letting all of their emotions rule their world. And if you want to control a person, control the emotions they feel when they're consuming what they consume.
Mm. Yeah, I'm a big time learner. I love learning from and so I tend to read a lot of books and honestly consume a lot of learning material, right? But as you're saying that, it makes me reflect on how that is being balanced with my own connections with spirit. And for those who are listening, what do you recommend as far as staying connected and being more connected with our guides, or even understanding? I think a lot of people are disconnected even from the idea that they have guides. And what I've learned and I've tried to communicate to others is that we all have guides. We all have spirit guides, ancestors, angels. We have this access to these divine channels that can help us and guide us. And a lot of people are just not even aware of that. But then once we become aware of it and realizing that those guides never leave, they're always, I mean, there's some that come and go, but we always have
Mm-hmm.
some connection. I'm like immensely curious about all of this because kind of the way that I've seen it is like our center of our being is like this light source. It's this, our soul is always connected, but the more that we get encased in this human world and we overlook that light, the dimmer that light gets, and it gets crusted in, I would say, and we get disconnected. But the more that we can expand that inner light and connect to that heavenly source of light, then we have the ability to expand that light. And it's almost like I have seen this where it's like there's light all over the planet, and it's just this network of light, but there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of darkness too. And so I'm just curious what you would recommend for people to, if first of all they're just learning for the first time, you mean I have a heavenly guide? Like how do they connect to that? And then yeah, anything that you have to share that would be helpful with that would be wonderful.
Well, our creator loves us so much that we don't go anywhere without some type of energy, engaging with us. Yeah. Now it's up to us to listen and to learn, or to follow that energy. In different religions, they call it different things, but it's essentially the loving energy of the creator for us. That's what it all boils down to. Um, but I'll tell you that that loving energy is very vested in us. But we can also ignore it and never turn around and reciprocate ever. And that's what the world would have us do if we didn't know any better. We would essentially cut ourselves off from our own divinity. But if you think about it, those who rule this world, they want that. They want you cut off from your divinity. They don't want you having a conscience. They don't want you thinking that you're something more than you are. But you are. You are something much more than what you see in the mirror. You are not the body that's looking back at you. You are the soul inside that body. You are the spark of divinity that's occupying that body. Um, the same way in physics, we know that energy can't be destroyed. The energy that is your soul when you die, it's not destroyed. You can't destroy energy. It moves to another plane. It moves to another place. And that same energy, it exists within us right now. One of the best things we can do is lean away from your technology. Do what our ancestors did. When they had questions, when they had problems, they would study scripture, they would pray, they would meditate, and they would find answers in their daily life while they're out in a forest or out in nature or in a church. They would find their answers inside.
Mm-hmm.
But now everyone's so quick to try to find the answer on the outside of them. They're not finding answers. They're finding someone who knows how to put on a good show.
Mm.
Because the answer, if it's a true answer, it should acknowledge inside of you, not just in the logic of the mind, but the mind should say, oh, hey, this is an answer. But the heart should speak up and say, yes, this is an answer. This is a truth. And if we're not getting that confirmation of the soul, of the spirit, then we don't necessarily have a truth.
Mm.
And the world will dazzle you. The world will keep you entertained for hours looking at nothing, nothing of importance for hours and hours every day. And, if we get addicted to that, who is at fault? Who's
Yeah.
at fault? When in a study, they introduced cocaine in water into rats. Okay. And if the rat was by themselves, they would go hit the cocaine water all the time, again and again and again. The second they introduced two more rats so that there was some type of society, no one would touch the cocaine water.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's like when we are plugged into life and living and truly living, not consuming, but living, we find a life force that arises in us. But when we're just so focused on consuming, there will never be enough. Never enough shows, never enough food, never enough um, stimulants, never enough of anything.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think about if we put down technology and specifically when I think of that, I think of our phones, which are becoming
Mm-hmm.
more and more instruments of addiction because of the programming that's available there and the AIs and all of that create this atmosphere that just is like it's addictive. Um, I think about if we all just put down our phones for a week, imagine how much time we would have available to us to
Oh, that would be
explore our
awesome.
spiritual life, to explore the spirit, to really feel what our heart is saying, not just be in our heads all the time, but to really be in our heart and to
Yeah.
experience that would be amazing. And yet it feels like in our modern day sometimes it feels like we don't really have a choice but to be connected to our phones, and so it's trying to find that balance where
Yeah,
we're
that balance, that happy medium. One way you can do it is take a phone vacation, take a technology vacation, leave your technology at home or turn it off, and spend a good amount of each day away from your technology. See if you can go a whole 72 hours. That's a way you can prove you're not addicted to whatever kind of technology you use. If you can't go 3 days without it, you are addicted. I don't care what it is.
Mm.
That's a physiological, psychological process.
Mm.
If you can go 3 days without it, you're not addicted.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Vinney, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I know there's more we could talk about, and maybe we will have an opportunity to do that in the future, and talk a little bit about some of the things that you saw for our future, because I know that's been part of your experience
Yeah, it's
too.
been part of the experience for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and what you're talking about today, being in that space where we're connecting more to our spiritual self, where we're being more creators than consumers, all
Mm-hmm.
that prepares us for a better tomorrow.
It
All of
does.
that creates an opening for us to be guided in a correct way instead of controlled. Um, in the world, we had, I think I heard 50%, more than 50% of countries had new leadership this past year in
Yeah.
2024, and there's a lot of emotion around that because we have a lot of thoughts about this leader controls my life, but in fact we are the
We
creators of our
control our
life.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's what's weird. If you don't master your life will master you.
Mm, for sure.
And that same goes for family, goes for businesses. Master it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% makes a lot of sense. Well, will you share with us first just maybe some of the daily practices that you use to stay connected
Um,
spiritually, daily
meditation
or
is, yeah,
week?
meditation's number one for me. I do it daily. I will have 5 minutes waiting for something and I will just meditate. I meditate my way into the world every day. I meditate my way out of the world every day. So when I wake up, I'm meditating. When I go to bed, I'm meditating. Um, if I'm listening to an audiobook, I will actually put it on and meditate too. So
Mm,
meditation's a huge thing for me. Breath work is number two. So when I'm doing my meditation, I'm focusing on concerted breaths, counting my breaths in, counting my breaths out. And in the beginning, I used to always count my breaths, and it helped me realize that my breath is where I can control my energy first. And if I control it there, I can control everywhere. But I first must control my breath. I can raise or lower my blood pressure just using my breath. I can raise and lower my heartbeat just using my breath. So it's pretty amazing that when you learn how to master your breath, you learn how to master your physiology a lot better. It's not foolproof. I mean, there's times where I can breathe all day; it's not winding me down. But on those days, I've got walks, I've got stretching, I've got studying things that I'm passionate about. So there's all sorts of other options. Um, but one of the most important things for me is avoiding negative influences.
mm.
I love negative influences. I'm a guy. I love guy stuff. And it's very easy for me to allow my consciousness to lean into that and consume negative things. It is. I'm also a libertarian, so I love liberty. I love um, the American Constitution. I love when freedom and rights are protected, but that also means that when things aren't going my way politically, I don't need to give all my hope away. I get to keep all my hope, and I get to own my hope. Nobody gets to take that from me. No election will take my hope from me. None. I don't
Mm,
care what party I'm ever voting for. The election doesn't take my hope away. I can give away my hope to anything. I can give it away to a boss. I can give it away to a spouse. I can give it away to a child. I can give it away to an election. But I choose to hold my hope
mm.
and keep it for myself, because that's part of what allows me to tick and keep going every day, is to keep that hope that I'm going to follow and do what heaven wants me to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Will you share with people the work that you do, where they can connect with you?
Yeah, I function out of a nonprofit called Living God's Light. Everything I do is out of my nonprofit. We started this as kind of a nonprofit that does spiritual education and training for people. We're going to publish a workbook this year towards the end of the year. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, it's out. Um, we are. I do everything there. I do coaching. That's my 9 to 5 for now, and in the near future, that's shifting. I've been shown, but yeah, I do one-on-one coaching. I help people figure out their own solutions, help them activate their own divinity, and build that relationship with divinity. And it's an awesome job. I love it. I've never had such an amazing job.
I love that. That's wonderful. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we close?
I think that if there's anything I would love to share, it's that every single one of you who are listening to this, whether it was pretty close to the time that we recorded or even years later, I want you to know that divinity loves you, that what religion calls God, but is something bigger than what religion can call it. The divine force, the creator force, that force loves you divinely. And that in the creator's eyes, in source's eyes, we are a divine masterwork and we are ultimately loved.
Thank you so much. And just to remind everyone of the website, it's livinggodslight.org.
Yeah,
And that's where you
.org,
can
yeah.
find Vinney, and we will have that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being with us today, Vinney.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Julie. It was awesome to chat with you.